Oh, remember the days when the Saints were just the automatic favorites in the NFC South, and who cared where Tampa Bay was, where Atlanta was, where Carolina? Yeah, those days, they're long gone. But where are the Saints? The NFC South, their odds are out. We're going to talk about that. How about the Pelicans? Can they just play all their games on the road? Maybe they'll win the whole damn thing. They don't have to play at home. I don't know what's going on there. And then our extra point could be fun for some, sad for others. Call coming up next on the Dattitude Podcast.
If you're looking for the latest scoop and in-depth interviews on the Saints, the NFL, the Pelicans, LSU, along with the best bets of the week, then lucky you. Along with high-powered, in-the-know guests who cover our teams, Jim Derry brings plenty of Dattitude. And he'll always tell you the way it is, or at least the way he thinks it is.
Where you at, New Orleans? And hello to my friends elsewhere, everywhere out there who survived the great storm of 2024. You know, I really shouldn't joke about it because it was pretty damn bad in a lot of places around the area, and especially in the Slidell area. Met some people yesterday who, as of yesterday afternoon, still didn't have power. Had to come to Metairie. Had to go to Metairie to be able to go to the bank. I know schools are still closed in St. Tammany Parish. You know, another thing I joke about, karma. Take that, buddy. Karma will get you. School's still closed on the east side of St. Tammany Parish. All the things going on. Lots of schools don't have power. Lots of places don't have roofs. So it was a pretty bad storm. We told you about it on Wednesday while we recorded the show. We do most of these shows live. Sometimes we can't. And Wednesday was a time when it's a good thing we actually did it. We recorded it Tuesday night because my power didn't go out, but it flickered enough at 10:17, which would have been 17 minutes into the show. It flickered enough to kick the internet off, and the internet went off. It took about 5-6 minutes to come back. That would have messed everything up. Gabe would have had to come on and host the show, which I'm sure he would have been okay with for a little while, but he would have had to figure out what to do, with the slides that we do now. Anyway, whatever. This is Dattitude, episode number 225. Enough of me chatting about nonsense for a Friday, April the 12th, 2024. Before we get started today, I want to make an announcement here. I didn't find out in time to put their logo on the screen, but we have a new title sponsor here for the Dattitude Podcast. So it's now the Dattitude Podcast with Jim Derry, brought to you by Evangeline Securities. Can't wait to tell you about Evangeline Securities. We'll be talking about more about them next week, but that is our new title sponsor. Their logo will be all over. You'll be able to see them. You'll be able to hear about what they do, and hopefully you can use their services. And we thank all the great people over there, Nick Braden, Ron Hemel, everyone at Evangeline Securities for being a part of the Dattitude team and a big part of the Dattitude team. Today, we're going to have a lot of fun. Because every time we bring in Doug Mouton, it's a ton of fun. I mean, we're going to talk about Saints. We're going to talk about Pels. Talk about whatever we feel like talking about. And you know what? I'm just going to bring him in now. Douglas, what's going on?
Hey, Jim Derry, how are you?
How are you, man?
I am good.
We're rolling here at Dattitude, trying to get going here, and we're going to start off with the Pels. We're going to spend probably most of the show talking about the Saints. So those out there who want to hear about the Saints, don't worry. We're going to spend probably 65 to 70% of the show today talking about the Saints. But I want to open with the Pelicans because I'm going to petition the NBA that they just play all their games on the road.
Yeah,
I don't know what it is. They stink at home. They go 1-5 on this homestand, and then they go and have must-win games against quality opponents and beat them. You could say beat them like a drum, really.
Last night was one of their best games of the year. Still no Brandon Ingram. The word is that he'll be back for the Lakers game for the Sunday night regular season finale, or Sunday afternoon regular season finale. But yeah, last night was just terrific. They come out against the Kings, which is clearly a team that they have a good matchup with. They were 4-0 against the Kings in 4 previous games, and it looked like it the whole way through. They hit 22 threes last night. They were 55% as a team from behind the three-point line. If they do that, they can literally play with anybody. CJ McCollum was unbelievable.
On fire.
Yeah, 9 of 12. And Zion is the guy making it all work because he's the guy getting everyone open threes. Honestly, it's the offense that they've sort of been building towards since they got Zion, where Zion – in the broadcast, they use the term gravity a lot. Zion, it brings so much gravity into the middle under the basket that people are going to get open threes. And Trey Murphy, I think, hit 6, and CJ McCollum hit 9, 22 as a team because they're not getting a ton of contested threes because everyone has to pack in on Zion. It's a pretty simple concept. And if you watch last night, it can and has often this year worked brilliantly.
And if you watched all of the way to the end, I love how the team got together for the interview. They wanted to talk to CJ McCollum, and of course they wanted to talk to Zion, and they're like, no, bring everybody. So Jose Alvarado was back there. I forget who the other guys were, but they were all together as a team, and they basically talked about being a team. And I think that's one advantage these guys have, and I believe them. I mean, we always talk about, Doug, when you talk about the really good Saints teams, they had chemistry. You believe that they loved one another is a little overdone, but
sure.
You believe that they wanted to all be together. They enjoy being together. They're doing stuff for one another. And to me, not every good team, but almost every good team really has that. We talk about baseball all the time. They put these all-star teams together, and they don't always win.
They almost never win.
You got to have chemistry.
Right. And look, this was, what's the word? This was calculated chemistry too. This team went out in the offseason. They had a really disappointing year last year, and they go out in the offseason and make almost no changes. They reran this thing with the idea that it was sort of 2 steps forward, 1 step back last year, and they sort of rolled the dice that this unit was going to improve without really changing it. And you know what? They were right. And the unit is significantly better. And let me say this, Jim, from the time I started doing your show, I love the graphics you put at the side for the people watching on YouTube. It's much more visually interesting than the two heads. So I appreciate what you do on the side. And for me, like, I can't remember exactly how many games they had won at this point. I know 50 was the goal. They got 48 wins.
48 wins.
16 games over 500. Like, that's a beautiful place to be in at this point. I don't think this is their championship run, but I do think they've taken a really positive step forward and I think it's possible that this unit can make a championship run. I mean, they're still going to need some tweaking, but we've seen a lot of good things out of this group this year.
Like Gabe Henderson says, chemistry versus chemistry. If they play Oklahoma City, and it looks like there's a chance of that. Look, if they win out, this is where they stand now. They're either going to be the 6 or they're going to be the 7. It's one of the two. I said before, this road trip, this little mini road trip, they needed to go at least 2-1. We knew that. Tonight, to me, is a huge game. You win against Golden State, and then you see what happens, okay? You see what happens with Phoenix. Maybe they lose. Maybe they don't, and then maybe you have to beat the Lakers. You don't know, but one thing that this team, to have a chance to win 50 games, I mean, that is a big number. And I know you see a lot of it in the West this year. The West is so packed, but to be able to have a chance to win 50 games and stay out of that play-in game, to me, is huge for this team.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt about it. And I think it's a tremendous, huge step forward. And get in the playoffs and see what happens. Now, for people who haven't studied the numbers, all the variables are gone except Phoenix. The Pelicans are either be 6 or 7. They're 1 game better than the Suns, but they do not have the tiebreaker, so they need to stay 1 game better than the Suns. The last 2 are at Golden State and the Lakers at home. The Suns are at Sacramento, who's still a good team. They match up well with the Pelicans, and then they get Minnesota in the finale. And Minnesota is absolutely, you see at the top of Jim's graphic, absolutely going to be fighting for the 1, maybe 2, but definitely between the 2 and the 3. And everybody wants to be as high a seed as they can. The top 3 are also in a little flux right now. That's still up for debate. Denver's 1 game better than Minnesota and OKC. You can see they're in a virtual tie for second. Minnesota has the tiebreaker for now. But so they're all jockeying. Minnesota's going to need that game. They're going to play Phoenix. In theory, If Phoenix loses one, then the Pelicans only need to win one. For now, you have to say they need to win two. And tonight against Golden State, you see, is in the playoffs. They're in the play-in, and they just don't know where they are yet.
Yeah, and Golden State didn't play that well at Portland last night. They did win the game, but they didn't play that well, and they're not playing that well overall right now. One thing, and I don't give the NBA a ton of credit a lot of times because, first of all, I think there's too many teams involved in postseason. It is what it is. But I will say this. If you're going to have these many teams, they've done a fantastic job at making it interesting and keeping teams fighting until the end because like you talked about, yeah, Minnesota's the 2 right now. They know they're going to be a 1, a 2, or a 3. But they got to keep fighting because it does matter. I mean, if it comes down to Denver versus Minnesota in the conference finals, of course you want to have home court advantage.
Right.
And you talk about these teams playing in. Hey, look, it matters whether you finish 7, 8, 9, or 10. If you're 7, you know you got a play-in game at home, and if you lose that one, you know you get the second play-in game at home.
Right.
So at least with the NBA's done. So every spot matters, and I will say that. So all these teams we're talking about, and maybe the Pels need help. Maybe that right now they're in control of their own destiny. But if they lose one, then they would need Phoenix to lose. And like you said, the teams they're playing, they need to win also.
Yeah, and look, I mean, you look at the Western Conference record. The team in 10th is still 10 games over 500.
Right.
In the end, I mean, that's a good team. The East, it doesn't look quite as good. In the East, 9 and 10 both have losing records. So it hasn't worked, although there's still a ton of variation in the middle between play-in and actually playoff teams. It's worked well, certainly in the West. Look, I was like you. I was skeptical. I think the play-in has been fun. What it's done is used to be where you got in at number 8, you would be in the playoffs, whoop-de-doo, and then you'd go get your butt kicked by number 1. At least this gives 7 through 10 a chance to have a little postseason success. And I'll say this too: Oklahoma City did that last year, coming out of the play-in, and they've translated that into a spectacular year this year. So it can help. Postseason experience is great for young teams. You saw it with Oklahoma City. I think whatever happens with the Pelicans, once you get to the playoffs and against Oklahoma City or Minnesota, I think those would be 2 just great matchups. I think Minnesota might be a little bit better of a matchup for the Pelicans than OKC. But either way, I think it's going to be fun as heck in that first round of the playoffs, assuming they can hold on to 6.
If you want to talk to either Doug or I or both of us or whatever, just type your comment. If you're watching on the live stream on either YouTube, X, or on Facebook, if you type your comment into the comment stream, it will show up here and we'll show it on the screen unless you're just a numbskull. I mean, then we probably wouldn't. But, I'm Ron Burgundy, as Gabe and I talk about all the time. If you type it in, I'm probably going to be, probably going to show it on the screen. So make it good. Also, by the way, I forgot to remind everybody, please subscribe to YouTube, Dattitude YouTube page if you can. You'll always find out when we're going on live. We are live today, by the way. Doug and I are both here. We're both living. We're both live at the moment.
Yeah.
Before we move on to the Saints, I do want to ask your opinion on it's something I brought up. And you said this Pelicans team is most likely not a championship team. I think we both agree on that. And I know you're not huge into the betting part of it, but we do talk betting sometimes.
That's all right.
And one
I can
thing,
talk. I'm just not good at it.
Yeah, well, one thing that I find interesting, and I keep bringing this up because it keeps changing in the bettor's favor. But I will say this: at the Pelicans, again, you're talking about a team with chemistry that plays well on the road. Those are 2 pieces of a formula that you could win a championship with. Do they match up well with the top 3 in the West? Not really. But, I mean, would it shock you if they went and beat Oklahoma City or whatever and moved on and had a chance to play in a conference championship game and maybe even beyond? Look, I think these numbers, a conference championship 30-1, if you play this thing out 30 times, I think the Pelicans are going to win 1, maybe 2. NBA championship, are they likely to win? No. But getting value at 80-1 to win the championship, I think that is really good value.
Well, and I'm not going to argue with you. And actually, look, we're not going to talk about this today, but like early on in the baseball season, I'm feeling smart because I told you one thing I was going to do at the beginning of the baseball season is I love the over/under prop bets on teams, and 2 of my teams that I put my working money on to be better not to be good, but to be mediocre at least for Kansas City and Pittsburgh, and they're both off to great starts. So I'm starting to feel smarter about betting. Of course, we're like 12 games into the baseball season, so I probably shouldn't get cocky about it. Look, the Pelicans team, there's a ton of variables right now. When I say I don't think they're a championship team, I think they can be. I think this group might and certainly has a chance to be a championship caliber group. And I think the two things that have worked, I think the two keys to this season are, one, they had organizational patience. They stuck with this group. It's what we said a minute ago. And this group did take that next step, which is obviously what David Griffin and management hoped they would. The organizational patience has paid off. And because I remember having this talk with Rod Walker at the beginning of the season. Is that a smart move to bring back a whole team that was not good at the end of last year? And they did. And it's worked, and the organizational patience helped. And then, two, is the development of Zion Williamson. He has taken 5 steps forward, 3 of them being just by being on the court, and he has had a spectacular year. I think better than the numbers show for what he does for this team. And I think they can be that good. I just think they're still in the learning process. And I think you saw that in the homestand. They're not quite there yet against the elite teams who had something to play for. They weren't quite there yet, which I think is what's going to play out in the playoffs. But then again, if they come out like they did last night, hit 22 threes, if they hit 50% from 3-point, they can beat anybody with the possible exception of Denver. But they can play with anybody when they're hitting threes, and that can happen.
You talk about Zion. If he plays in these final 2 games of the season, regular season, he's going to play in 70 games. You know how much money I would have lost betting that Zion Williamson wasn't going to play 70 games in any season, much less this season or whatever. And whatever he did, remember the changes they made in the offseason, Doug? They got rid of his personal trainer and whom he was really close to. I don't think he liked it very much, but whatever they did, and they said, you know what? We're not doing this anymore. We're getting tough. And you know what? He got tough. He looks like a monster.
He really does. And he looks strong in the fourth quarter. He looks
stronger than ever.
I was going to say, he looked as good last night as he has at any point this season. Although in each of the last 2 games, he's gone down, had to go back to the locker room
and scare the hell out of you.
Stops, and then he came back in both games. So there's still a.
You should have. I know you were watching the game, but I was driving back. I had to broadcast the game last night, so I was driving back. I listened to the first half on the way home. You should have heard Graffinini when he went down. It was awesome.
Yeah,
I can only imagine. It's the end of the world as we know it, REM. I mean, it is. I love listening to Todd Graffinini.
Oh, yeah. And if you don't, something's wrong.
You got to. Look,
it's fun.
For Pels fans out there who just watch them on a regular basis, every now and then, I'm not saying do it all the time, but you just got to go. You got to turn the sound down on your TV. Like
the problem is they don't match anymore.
You got to. Well, you could press pause.
Okay, right. And that would get them to match.
You get them to match. That's what I do with the Saints a lot of times. Like, if I feel like listening to Mike Hoss, which I do sometimes.
The radio should be.
The radio would be ahead. Yeah. I don't know. You got to find.
There's nothing you could do about that. No, in fact, there was a point last night where I accidentally opened up ESPN the play-by-play. I was on the air in the middle of the game, so I'm like checking stats, because I try to give as recent, although anyone who cares about the game is watching the game. Right. But I'm still on TV saying what's happening with the game. And I opened it up and literally ESPN was like 7 plays ahead of where the game was. The game was literally being broadcast with like a 45-second delay. There was, at one point, there were 2 baskets had happened that we hadn't seen on TV yet.
Getting off topic, but that's one of the bad things about I don't want to. I guess cutting the cord is the way to say it, because I went to YouTube TV and I don't.
And you're further behind.
Don't regret it at all. It's phenomenal. By the way, they have not endorsed this show in any shape or form, but I highly recommend YouTube TV. But that is literally the only drawback, in my opinion, is that when you watch on cable, it's probably 15 seconds behind. When you watch on DirecTV, it's about 30 seconds behind. When you watch on YouTube TV, it's anywhere from 45 seconds to a minute behind. So.
It is. And so you can't be on Twitter because Twitter will be 2 plays ahead, or at least 1. No, in fact, even on cable, in the press box, when with Saints games are on, you watch the play live and then you look up at the live broadcast and the play hasn't started yet. And then the play happens. It's almost like a live replay of what you just saw.
That's why during Saints games now, if I'm not at the Dome, if I'm at home, I put my phone facing down and turn it on silent. I don't look at my phone during a Saints game. I don't feel like answering numbskulls anyway. Not the the numbskulls that watch this show. They're not numbskulls. We love them. I'm talking about the numbskulls that are my friends, that I call my friends.
Yeah.
We don't want to talk to them. All right, let's move on to the Saints. The NFC South odds are out, and I found these interesting. And I joked in the opening of the show that remember the days when the Saints were just automatically the favorite to win the NFC South. I mean, year after year, really, for quite a while. Not that way anymore. And I mean, to see the Saints in third at plus 380, which means for the layman, basically means 3.8 to 1.
Yeah.
And the Falcons not only are favored, but you can't even get them in even money. They're minus 130, which means you got to lay $130 to win 100. Times have changed for sure. And I just want to get your opinion on these numbers. First of all, before we even get into the Saints, I don't understand why Tampa Bay is plus 300. I think Tampa Bay should at least be even with Atlanta. I just don't think Atlanta's that far ahead of everyone else.
No, I don't think so. I mean, that's obviously Kirk Cousins, and Atlanta was not a bad – Atlanta was an average team. Look, people saying the Saints were a bad team last year are wrong. They were 9-8. They were mediocre. You can call them mediocre. You can call them average. You can't call them bad. Atlanta was also sort of an average, mediocre team, and they were average with horrible quarterback play, as bad a quarterback play as it was in the NFL. And so obviously that's what people are betting on, that the quarterback play will go from horrible to pretty good, and that will be enough to elevate them to better than what is an average division. And look, Jim, you look at what the Saints have done in free agency, and you and I can probably say what they did in free agency, but I would say people hosting podcasts, like even professionals in this business, and you said, and even in the NFC South cities, and said, what did the Saints done in free agency? And no one would be able to tell you, because it is the quietest, most nondescript, unexciting moves. Maybe people would be able to say Chase Young, and with the neck injury, we don't know how much they're going to get from Chase Young this year anyway. But the Saints have had such a quiet free agency. They've been non-existent on the free agent landscape that I can see why nationally
they put themselves in salary cap purgatory.
And look, maybe this is the first time that they have started to dig out of it, because they clearly haven't spent anything.
No.
And so maybe this is the year that they said, we have to start working our way out of purgatory, because the moves have all been I will say this, though. I for what the shape they were in 2 months ago compared to now, I got to give – I know this sounds weird with what you just said, because I agree with you. But with what they've done and the money, with the situation they were in, I'd give them an A, because I think that everyone they've signed is going to play a key role. I mean, you look at Willie Gay, and I think he brings a lot to the table. Cedric Wilson is a solid number 3 receiver, and I think he's going to be more important in this team than people know. You sign Udo, a backup lineman that they certainly need. You got to expect them to draft a starting left tackle in the draft. I just think that what they've done, and look, I'll say they're bad when they're bad. I say they're good when they're good, and I say when they do good things, I say they do good things. And I think they've done really good things in free agency here. Really? For what they had. Wow. Yeah, this is like a role reversal for you and I. I'm usually more of the optimist. Like, I don't agree with you at this. Yeah, look, I agree with the money part. You had to fix that. But of all the things they've done so far, all right, in baseball, I don't know what the NFL equivalent to this term is. In baseball, there's a term where you call a guy a quad A player, meaning he's great at AAA and doesn't get it done at the major league level, right? To me, there have been 3 in all the free agent ins and outs for the Saints, and there have been about a dozen of them. But in all of those, you've added Chase Young, and we don't know how much he's going to play. You've added Willie Gay, which I agree is a slight upgrade at linebacker. and you've lost one good player, Malcolm Roach, who I think is an underrated and a good defensive tackle. All the other moves that the Saints have made, ins and outs, to me have involved quad A players. Well, guys who can, help in a pinch and be special teams guys. And Isaac Yiadom was the best of their quad A players last year, and he's now back out. He got a 1-year deal. He got a quad A player type deal to leave New Orleans. But I think everything they've done has been with quad A players. I think your goal in free agency is to get better. I think they've added 2 good players, subtracted 1 good player. They've gotten maybe a skeech better and 0% better on offense.
What's a skeech?
A skeech, just a tiny bit.
Oh, okay.
And they've gotten 0% better on offense. So if the goal is to get better in free agency, I don't see where they've done that. I know they needed to zero their money, or at least get closer to zero with the money, and I get that. But this team was 9-8. You got to get better, and at this point, I don't see a team that's gotten better yet. Obviously, the offseason's not over, and you still got the draft. But at this point, I mean, look, one place that got worse was in the quarterback room. Jameis Winston's a better backup than Nathan Peterman.
They just signed Kellen Mond, buddy. That's going to change everything.
Right.
Gabe Henderson just gave me the alert.
Clearly,
Kellen Mond, baby. It's going to change everything.
That's going to be the game changer. I just don't see a team that's improved itself at this point. I think they were a mediocre team, and I think they still look like a mediocre team. Now, again, I'd love to be wrong, right? I'd love to be wrong. Nobody pulled, well, I wouldn't say nobody, but the media that covers the Saints absolutely wants the Saints to win. One, most of us are from New Orleans, and 2, it's much more fun to cover a team that's winning than a team that's losing. I don't like being the negative guy. That's just not my personality.
Wait, hold on. I want people to mark this date down. The date is on the screen.
I know.
It's April 12th, 2024.
And you're more optimistic than me.
Mark this date down. Derry Downer is high on the free agent moves. Doug Mouton down. Doug Mouton is usually the optimist. He and Duncan sit in some kind of perch high praise room where they think everything's roses.
Oh, you just turned it into mean. You just turned it into mean.
That's what I do.
Oh, see, that's just not right.
I'm just saying, you
did. You just turned like
didn't you and Duncan think they're going to win like 15 games last year?
View of the world into a bad way to live your life.
How many games did you predict them to win last year, Doug?
You know what? I
come on now.
I might have said 10, and they won 9.
I think you said 11.
No, I definitely didn't say 11. I definitely didn't say 11.
All right.
And actually, I haven't. We did it. We did a training camp show, and I said it on there.
Okay.
I just got to look.
I mean, I seem to remember that you and I did a preseason show on WWL.
I definitely didn't say 11.
We were
the year before that, I did.
Okay, maybe that was, I don't know.
And see, right now, if you ask me right this minute, I'd be leaning 8, but we're not asking that.
No, and I did a show yesterday. Look, we all do shows. We do whatever we can to promote our brand. And Garland Gillen's a friend of mine. Did his show yesterday, and we were talking about over-unders, and the over-under for the Saints right now is 7.5. And he asked me whether I think it's going to go over-under, and you just can't really predict that right now. Can't. You have to wait and see what they get in the draft. And to me, but I will say this: there are times to get bargains. There's no bargain on 7.5, I don't think, because right now I agree with you. If I had to predict right now, I'd say 8. Yeah. I think they're going to have 8 wins. But
all right, so we're not that far apart.
But right now, I may change my mind after the draft. But I will say this: I think there is a bargain on plus 380 because I don't think Kirk Cousins makes that big. They're still the Falcons. The Falcons are going to falcon. They're going to do what they do. Atlanta stinks. They're not supposed to be good because they're Atlanta. I mean, so maybe it's a bias from growing up or whatever it is, but they disappoint more. The Saints can disappoint, but no team in the NFL disappoints people like the Atlanta Falcons. Let's get real.
No. And I agree with you. I 380 does seem like a good bargain to jump in on at this point. I don't disagree with that at all. I mean, if you're looking for bargains in betting, I don't think that's a bad one at all.
And I don't get Tampa Bay at all. And look, I am no fan of what Tampa Bay has done. I'm not a fan of the Tampa Bay coaching staff. I'm not a fan of a lot of things with Tampa Bay. But how can the defending champs, who basically coming back now, they did lose a few pieces on defense. I get that, but how can Tampa Bay be plus 300?
Well, just from what they've done the last couple of years, they've muddled through and been the best of the worst division, and and
but why couldn't they be the best of the worst again at 3-1? I mean, give me some Tampa Bay. I'm going to go put some money on. I'm not just saying this. I'm going to put money on Tampa Bay and New Orleans. I think. All right. I mean, now's the time to do it before it changes.
Now's the time to do it before things change. Before people start realizing that ATL stands for Atlanta.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Gabe Henderson says real quick, he says, when I talk about no one disappoints like the Atlanta Falcons, he says the Minnesota Vikings and Buffalo Bills would like to have a word. I get that.
Yeah.
But
although Buffalo's been a good team and a fun team to watch the last couple of years, I know they haven't advanced like they like.
They're going to be interesting this year. We'll talk more about them in the summer for sure, but they're going to be interesting. All right,
see what you just said? They're going to be interesting?
Yeah.
No one in America is saying that about the Saints right now.
That's true.
No one. And maybe that's a good thing, but man, I would love to have the one signing they made that gets you a little bit excited because he's got this crazy upside and he's 24 years old. Then literally the next day,
they still have money. They still have money. They're going to sign somebody else. I think that.
Well, and I do, and that's why I say you have to like be silent on it at this point, because at this point, there's a lot of talk from the beginning of free agency that the Saints were going to, whatever you call it, third wave this thing and hit it once the supplemental formula doesn't play. It's going to be after that draft. You're going to see them find money to go get a few guys. So yes, the jury is out. I don't think there's any question. I'm just talking about what I've seen so far is a lot of quad A player moving around. And in baseball, that never changes a baseball team.
You know what I think about when I hear quad A? I think about old high school football.
All right.
Chris Franks says the most interesting thing about the Saints is the Loomis cap manipulation.
Yeah, right. It
kind of is.
And I got to say this too. Like when I decided 35 years ago, you know what? I want to try to do sports on TV. That seems like a fun thing to do for a living. I was not thinking, I can't wait to manipulate salary caps and see how much space teams have. I would have just been an accountant. Like
no kidding.
That is like the least fun thing about sports, and that is the most positive thing the Saints have done.
Yeah, but back 35 years ago, when you and I were getting into this business as pups, they didn't really. I don't think they had a salary cap.
No one cared. No
one knew.
No.
And in fact, if I remember correctly, the strike of '87, they were still fighting for free agency. They couldn't even leave their team, and that's just. That's not even that long ago. I mean,
they had weird systems for people who aren't old enough to remember where rookies, because there was no rookie cap. That's the smartest thing that they did.
100%
was put money on what a rookie could make. You had rookies who had never played. Literally 3 rookies would come in and be 3 of your 5 highest paid players on your team before they played a game or done anything. And clearly that caused some dissension in the ranks.
You know what it's also done, though? I will say this, and this is why I think the players were for a rookie cap. You take a guy, let's take a guy like Trevor Penning, for instance.
Yeah.
If there were no rookie cap, if there were no rookie deals, I mean, they might have cut him.
And right now,
find another job.
Right. That's very true.
So you look at a guy like that, I think a rookie, there's no risk for the Saints to keep Trevor Penning on this roster for the next 2. He'd have to be so bad that they think there's just no chance they can make him a player at all or even a backup. Because the next 2 years he doesn't cost anything. Right. So I think that rookie deals have actually helped both sides in certain extents for sure. We'll find out. Breaking. Here we go. This might change your mind.
Is that true?
The Saints signed free agent wide receiver Equanimeous St. Brown, or Equiminius. Is it? I think it's Equiminius, isn't it?
Yeah.
Equiminius St. Brown. So there you go.
All right.
Another Cedric Wilson type. I mean, he might be better than Cedric Wilson. I don't know. The Saints are actually starting to make moves at receiver that I like.
Yeah, 3 minutes ago. Well, look, I don't know if that's the move. What I like about it, I would say, is that they recognize that they need help at wide receiver. That's what I would say. And I agree 100%. Look, that's the one thing when you watch the team and something stands out, and you say, God, they got to fix this. And you wonder if they see that too. And just the fact that whatever tiny bit of money they've spent on wide receivers, at least some of it means, you know what, we got to upgrade this position, which I absolutely think they do. And look, I think all of the money on what they do in the first round is at tackle, and I think it probably has to be. But, man, I would love if they could come up with a wide receiver in the draft, because I absolutely think they need to upgrade wide receiver.
Well, that, before we go off, the last question that I had for you was about that, actually. And now that we see that they signed St. Brown, not so much, we talked about the odds part of it, but going to the draft, we're 13 days away from the draft now. I think everyone that has a normal brain that doesn't just want to play Madden football knows that the Saints need a tackle. I mean, my son says he wants a skill player because every 25-year-old who.
Well, I agree with your son.
Oh, come on. Not in the
first
round.
You said want a skill player.
Not in the first round. Not in the first
that's
round.
what I want. Now, I don't think that's going to happen.
In the first round?
Happen. But it would. Well, you want to hear my.
They don't have a tackle, Doug.
You want to hear what would be ideal for me? What I would love to see?
What?
wait.
I'm just laughing. They're over there playing without a tackle. They literally don't have a tackle right now.
No, what I would love to see them do, and it's something they would never do. What I would love to see them do, there appear to be multiple tackle possibilities, right? This draft appears to be fat with tackles, and I just wrote it down.
PHAT.
Yeah, PHAT, right. What I'm And here's the thing about these tackles. You should have good tape on all of them. Get tackle Alabama, Georgia, Notre Dame, Oregon State, Penn State, all with elite tackles. I would love it if somehow they could trade down a few spots, get an extra pick, and get a tackle and a wide receiver. That's what I would love. Obviously, you're going to need a tackle. But here's the thing. Andres Pete's still out there, too.
But yet the last two draft picks the Saints have used on offensive linemen that come from Northern Iowa and Old Dominion. So there you go. Right. So they think they know more.
These guys you should have tape on. You should have functional tape on all of these guys. Yeah, look, tackle seems to be the most obvious way to go. Look, a couple of years ago,
1A and 1B.
And it's funny, too, because 2 years ago,
1B.
we were saying 1A and 1B is tackle and wide receiver. And, of course, that's when they got Penning and Olave, and they still need the same thing.
2 years ago, we were saying 1A and 1B on wide receiver and tackle, and you can put them in whatever order you want. Now, look. They clearly need a tackle. In fact, look, I know they're not going to do this because they don't do this. It's not in their MO. But if there were if there was ever a year to trade down 4 or 5 spots and get yourself an extra pick, you can get one of those linemen you're talking about. Just look at Georgia. Just look at Alabama. Just, Notre Dame, Joe Alt's not going to fall, but whatever. All those guys we've been talking about, Penn State, Olu Fashanu, all those guys we've been talking about, they're going to drop a little bit. And
because they're going to drop 20. Because of the quantity. Look, it's a supply and demand. So where there's less of a supply, those guys rise. And where there's more of a supply, those guys tend to fall because you figure, well, I can get one of those guys later.
Right.
And you've got a bunch of – this is the year. And look, this is the year too, Jim, in the fact that they've attacked free agency differently. They haven't spent money they don't have for the first time in a long time. So maybe this is the year that they go against their trend and don't give away 3 picks to move up 5 spots, and that they actually get extra picks and go back. Maybe since they bucked their own trend in free agency, maybe they'll buck their own trend in the draft. Maybe. This is
such a weird year, and Chris says, Loomis doesn't know he's allowed to trade down. Maybe he read a rule book.
No one told him.
Maybe somebody told him,
Hey,
maybe
you know
Mrs.
what?
Benson went in there.
Remember Roman Harper? That was a trade down.
Yeah,
that
was
spectacular. Yes.
Forgot about that.
It was
Roman Harper.
And that was in 2006, which, look, this isn't 2006.
I still remember Roman Harper not being able to make a tackle in San Francisco against Vernon Davis.
In 2006, they recognized, you know what? We just need a lot of parts. We need a lot of – they need depth across the board.
They really
need
do.
to roll a dice on
and they don't have a lot of picks this year.
If there was ever a year to try to collect an extra pick or two, especially in those first 3 rounds, man, I would love to see them do that because I think they need quantity. They need quality, but I think they need quantity.
Quality, all of it.
They need all of it. They need all of it. They're not one piece from a championship.
No, definitely not. All right, since we're probably not going to have you on again before the draft, I want you to make a prediction. We've done our talking here. You don't necessarily have to say the player or whatever. Just give me your prediction for. We've talked about what we want them to do, or what we think they might do, or whether Loomis knows what he can do. What do you think they're gonna do?
What I think they're gonna do, I think they're gonna take a tackle in round 1. They're gonna stay where they are and take whoever they think that they're gonna say. We had 2 guys or 3 guys, and whoever falls to them, this guy was our first choice. They're going to say that, right?
Of course.
And I think, and then I think they're going to take a defensive lineman because that's what they do every year, and they never seem.
Oh God, you took the words out of my mouth.
Linemen. And I would love them to not do that. I think they need some playmakers. I think they need some size at wide receiver. You look at the San Francisco offense, and you look at those wide receivers and what's made that run, and they're all big. And the Saints, Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed are not big. Look, they can run and they have value, but they have no size. You're unlikely to hand the ball out of the backfield or do things like that with them. And you can use a playmaker or 2. And that's how you win.
You know what? I think there's an excellent chance you're right. And if they draft a defensive lineman in the 2nd round and don't, without making a move, that is, and then you got to go from round 2 to round 5 without another pick.
Correct.
And they draft a defensive lineman in the 2nd round, I'm going to lose my mind.
Yeah.
You don't. I don't care what Duncan's saying it. I think Triplett said it on NOF. Other people have said it too. You don't need any more defensive linemen in the draft. Period.
If you ask me what I think they're going to do, they're going to go in a tackle and say, "Well,
I agree with you,
Malcolm Roach." Right? Yes,
I think you're right.
I'd hate it.
So would I.
Yes.
Honestly, this team needs. I mean, let's be realistic. No one's talking about this, but they need a running back.
There's no doubt.
I mean, really
I think they need a running back. I think they need I think they need 2 wide receivers. I think they have a space on this roster for 3 new wide receivers. I think they need receivers. They certainly need offensive line depth. They certainly need secondary depth again. And look, these are all the guys that let you go sign free agents. If you can find any kind of player, any Alontae Taylor in rounds 2 or 3 or 4, these are the guys that let you go get the and when you have it's your salary cap balance sheet. And when you keep trading away all these picks to move up in round 1, you're killing your depth and you're killing your ability in the salary cap. Like, just take a shot on guys, and the quantity matters. And I hope I would love to see them trade down. I don't think they will, just because I haven't seen them do it in this generation. But at least don't trade up. One guy is not going to make you a championship team.
You know what we're doing here? We're selling people on bet the under. Yeah. We're saying all these things. I
know.
I mean, it's starting to make me.
I hate being that guy.
So do I. And, as much as people joke.
I love being that guy.
No, I mean, look, I have to be that guy because I'm trying to be a realist. But inside of me, deep down, I'm an optimist. Deep, somewhere deep down.
But on the surface, you love being cranky.
Look, for lack of a better way, it's hard to wade through shit sometimes, Doug. I mean, and that's that. I'm just trying to be a realist. That's what it is.
Well, and look, I am too at this point. And people have me on their shows sometimes because they know that I'll provide some optimism. I mean, look, I watch sports because it's fun. I don't want to watch a ball game and be miserable. That's not why. When I started watching a lot of games as a kid,
you're playing 40 fantasy leagues. Of course, you're trying to have fun.
I want to win. I want to enjoy a game and have fun. I want the Saints to win, and so I tend to look at the bright side. And look, I don't think the Saints are a bad team, and I said that 100 times.
I don't either.
When you would say how bad they are, I'd say they're not bad. They're mediocre.
Well, they were because of their coach.
They're average. They were 9-8. They're average. You cannot call that bad.
They're
It's not
9-8 with one of the weakest schedules in NFL history.
Okay, they're still average.
That doesn't equate to average.
Yes,
You're on
Jim, they're
a
9-8. They were an average team.
If they played an average schedule, they would have been 6-11.
They were an average team last year, Jim. And there's only one number that matters in sports. Nothing else matters. It's your wins and your losses. They won 9, they lost 8. That's actually above average. Whether you want to admit 9 and 8 is above average or not, to me, it just shows that you don't understand basic concepts of math.
Oh,
because
I went to Shaw.
Math,
I went to Shaw.
You always bring that up.
I mean, it's
math, they are average, slightly above average. It's the only number that matters. Anyway, I just haven't seen them do anything that elevates them to better than average at this point in the offseason. Although, and you said it, this offseason is far from done. Let's see what happens now. But look, you draft a tackle, all you're doing is covering for your mistake 2 years ago. You're not getting better. You're just patching a mistake. That's just the truth, right? You're patching a mistake if you take a tackle. And I think they're going to take a tackle.
They're not patching a mistake. They don't have a tackle.
No, they have Trevor Penning.
No, he's not a tackle. He's nothing.
They're patching a mistake.
Now, I don't want him to come knock on my door because
that you are saying is not good enough.
Well, sometimes you have to patch a mistake. If you made a mistake.
No, I get that. But when you're patching mistakes, you're not getting better.
They're not patching mistakes. They're going full out. We got the roof blown in. We need a new roof.
No, they didn't. They were average. That's not the roof blown in. Roof blown in is 3-14.
They had one of the worst offensive lines in football last year. People can continue to bitch about Derek Carr. And look, I have too at different times because he shouldn't have played hurt for a few of those games.
No, clearly.
But why did he get hurt? Because they don't have an offensive line. I mean, if you protect the guy, he's shown that he can be a top 10 quarterback. And I honestly don't think there's much difference between Kirk Cousins and Derek Carr. I really don't.
Yeah, I don't think there's a ton of difference. If you asked me to take one, I would take you for 1 year. I would take Cousins next year, and
I guess,
and I would bet that 32 NFL GMs off.
I would just hope that in
at least
25
of them would take Kirk Cousins in a 1 year over Derek Carr for this year. You agree with that?
Yeah, I would take Kirk Cousins as long as they don't play any night games. So the Saints probably aren't going to play a lot of night games.
How many of 32 GMs you gave them that choice for this year? How many take Kirk Cousins and how many take Derek Carr?
More than 20 take Kirk Cousins.
Okay, yeah, agreed. And I would agree with that too. Yeah, and look, Gabe says he would take Carr's contract over Kirk Cousins. I get that, but I hate talking about contracts and money. Like if you're just talking about who's going to help you win.
You have to, though, these days.
Of course. But if you're talking about who's going to help you win, that's my question.
I mean,
anyway, look, and what you just said, I think is true. I think you might need more than one offensive line. Again, and you don't have a lot of draft picks, at least not high. Again, another reason. If you can get a deal, if you can get somebody a little desperate, there's the last wide.
Saints are desperate.
Roma Dunze falls a couple of spots. Somebody wants to get to 14 to get him. Like,
yeah. Right, exactly.
Take advantage of that.
100%.
If it's there, if
somebody's going to fall.
Of course, somebody's going to fall. Like if you can take advantage of a team and get an extra 2 or even get an extra 3 to move down a few spots, I would love to see the Saints do it because we could sit here and give a reason why they need help at almost every position.
Next time Douglas Mouton is on this show, we're going to talk about algebraic formulas and contracts and how to figure out the Pythagorean theorem and all those other things. And I'm just going to shut up and let him talk because
there you
I
go.
don't know math.
Yeah.
I mean,
9-8 is not bad.
It ain't good.
No, it's not good either. And I never claimed it was.
When you have a schedule like they had last year.
I never claimed it was good.
I
never claimed it was. I claimed it was average/mediocre. Those are the 2 words I used on TV and in real life like a billion times. And that's what they are. But the goal is to be better than average/mediocre.
Can we have this debate on your show?
And I'm not saying that. I don't have this kind of time. We would have to do it in 3.5 minutes. Right.
People would watch it, though. It would be great.
But you'd have to do it in 3.5 minutes.
I promise I wouldn't say any bad words.
You just
be
did.
fun.
No, see, You did a minute ago. I've never said that word on TV.
Yeah, but it's a podcast. It's different.
I know.
Every now and then I throw one in.
Oh my God, that's so cool. You can say that word.
I just throw it in every now and then just to let people know that I can.
Just to wake people up. Yeah,
just, about once every fifth show or so.
It woke me up. I'll tell you that.
I know. It's like, remember, when you were in school and a teacher would say a bad word.
Oh, yes. Accident, or a teacher would get super mad. Right. Yeah.
Or my parents who didn't use the F word hardly at all. And every now and then, just to really get you, if dad said the F word, you're like, oh my God, I am in a world of hurt.
I hate to say it. I heard it a lot.
Yeah. Well, that's, I don't know. I'm just going to leave it.
Anyway.
All right. Well, I appreciate you coming on the show. I'm not joking. If you're not my favorite guest, you're certainly in the top 2 or 3 because I love to have the banter with you, and you don't get offended when I poke and prod at you.
Oh no, I don't know. Yeah, I gave up a long time ago caring about that.
Next time I'm gonna tell the story about you being a fantasy baseball commissioner and people piss you off in the draft.
Yeah, God, I man. Sometimes I wish I could handle problems. Not problem. I don't want to say it. Sometimes I wish I had more patience for people.
Let's just say.
And look, I'll say this before. Like I have a son who has autism.
Yeah.
Who's an
and so you have the patience to deal with
and I have
autism.
Unlimited patience for Quentin.
Exactly. You have,
but that's at 100, and I think it saps me of all patience for problems from grown-ups. When grown-ups have problems that I think grown-ups shouldn't have, like at a fantasy baseball draft, how to run their computer, it drives me up a wall because generally it tends to be the same grown-ups every time that have those problems.
That's very true, just like in real life. Rosemary, I think you're joking. You guys knock it off. It's a sports show. I know you're joking, but if you've watched this show more than once, you know that I talk about a whole lot more than sports in the show, especially when my friends like Doug come on. And
well, I don't have a whole lot to talk about, honestly, besides that.
Yeah, you do.
Well, we could talk about cocktail and drink making, but beyond that, I don't have much of a scope of expertise.
Well, when we get into the summer, we'll talk about whatever the hell we want because it'll be the summer and there won't be anything else to talk about. I'm going to have you on before then, but look, go have a great week, and I hope everything over the course until we talk again goes well for you, except for the dugouts in the Donzi Rainey League.
And I like that team. I'm starting to believe in that team. Anyway, so wait, before we go, you think it's an offensive tackle in round 1 without question?
I think if they draft anything but tackle, you're going to want to tune into the NOLA.com.
That's not what I asked.
Show.
That's not what I asked. You think it's going to be a tackle?
I don't even. I hope they don't take this the wrong way when I say this, but I don't even think they can screw this up.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let me ask you this. 99 being the highest percentage of something happen and 1 being the lowest. What are the percentages, would you say, that the Saints trade down? I
actually think that there's about a
8?
30 to 40% chance they trade down.
No.
Yeah, I really do.
30? No.
I think
now I'm starting to think you don't understand math again.
No, I'm telling you. Because
30?
Look,
I think it's like maybe 8.
I think
8, I think, is 7 more than I would have said at
8%.
Sean Payton
8 times out of 100.
Yeah,
this isn't your regular.
That's about right.
I think it all depends on 2 things.
I mean, they haven't done it in 20 years.
No, it depends
18
on
years.
It depends on 2 things. It depends on when they get to 14. If only Joe Alt has gone off the board from tackle, there is 0 reason not to trade down.
Agree.
And then they're gonna. So part 2 of it is.
But you don't think they're gonna wait? Time out. Let me just break in.
Okay.
You don't think they're gonna say, "Oh no," but we think Mims, the kid from Georgia, we think he's the best of the bunch, and he's still there. We're gonna grab him.
No, because I think they could get Mims. I mean, if they're paid attention to the world. They know that they could get Mims at like 22, 24. Now, I'm not saying they should drop that far. I think they realize that. I think that they probably have like 4 guys that they're okay with any of the 4. Okay. And so if you get to 14 and of the 4, all 4 are there or 3 of the 4 are there and somebody wants to move up from 18 or 19 to 14 and you can get a 3rd round pick for it or a 2nd round pick for it, which is a possibility. I think that they can't they can't not do it, and I think they will do it.
You're saying that wrong. I'm not asking what you think they should do. I'm asking you what you think they will do.
Maybe I'm
this
giving
is a team
them
that
more
hasn't
credit.
Traded down in a significant pick since literally the beginning of the Sean Payton era. And you think they're ready to do that now?
You don't think they listen to all this? You don't think that someone in the organization is, and I don't mean that they're taking our advice, but I'm not just talking about this
Anybody's
show.
taking my advice.
I guarantee you someone from the Saints watches, multiple people from the Saints organization watches this show on a regular basis. Multiple people from the Saints listen to the NOF, listen to Saints Insider on our show. They all listen. And I'm telling you, if you don't think that these things in Pro Football Focus and The Athletic, they listen to all these things. And I guarantee you that when they say they don't care what anybody else thinks, they're full of crap. They do care what other people think. And I think they're listening. I actually, maybe you can call me naive if you want, but I think they're listening, and I think it matters.
I definitely don't think Sean Payton ever listened. I think
Sean Payton listened, but I don't think Sean Payton cared.
I think, okay, you might be right. He might have listened and purposely gone the opposite way out of disdain for what he was hearing. I just look, and I'm saying I would love the trade down scenario, and I agree with you. And I do think it's 100% logical and makes sense for this team right now. I just don't see these guys.
There's one big difference, Doug. Okay, this is only the third year without Sean Payton. Okay, anybody who knows anything knows that before Sean Payton left, nothing against Mickey Loomis. I love Mickey Loomis. But Mickey Loomis was not in control of that room. If Sean Payton wanted to trade up, they traded up. If Sean Payton wanted to draft XYZ, they drafted XYZ.
100%.
So this is only really the third year that Mickey's drafting. Well, since before 2006 or whatever, but it's only the third year that Mickey's drafting without Sean Payton in the room. So I don't know if there's enough trend line.
I agree with that. I agree
to say that Mickey, they never do that. And I'm guilty of it too. I say they never do it too. But I think that he's smart enough to know that what they can get for making that trade, and because of the fact that they don't have a third-round pick and they don't have a fourth-round pick, he knows that they need to have at least one, maybe two more players that they don't currently have to be able to do it. And the only way to do it is to trade down.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. And this draft does create an incredibly unique situation that promotes that, in that you've got multiple guys at the position that is clearly your greatest need, that are all projected right about where you are. And what you said is 100% true. They could literally get to that pick and have five guys with a mid first round grade all on the board when you get there. So you can take one, or now look, it may also get to the point where if all the quarterbacks are gone and the wide receivers, you might not have anybody who wants to move up. There might not be an opportunity to move up. But there might be, and there frequently is in the draft.
I'm going to say this. If he has the stones to wait this long, okay, watch out for the Buffalo Bills who draft 28. If he wants to gamble and think that one of his four guys, if all four of his guys are still on the board and he wants to take a risk and drop all the way to 28, I promise you, the Bills are going to want to trade up and get a receiver, especially if you're talking about, I don't think Roma Odunze is going to fall that far.
No, I don't
But
either.
if someone like that does, if someone of that ilk does fall that far, if they want to jump up and grab Brian Thomas, it could happen. So watch the Buffalo Bills. They're going to be the ones that are going to be trying to make a move up.
28's further down than you'd like to go, but
it is, but it depends on what you can get out of the deal.
You get a better return, obviously.
For
sure.
sure.
Look, there's a point system. There's not really that much variation.
No, there's not.
Each
Correct.
pick has comes with points coming from 28 that have to give a lot in addition to 28. So you get a bunch of points moving up. I would love to see a scenario where they move down and get multiple players, because I think they need a lot of help.
I just want you to be able to tweet out on draft night if it happens. Jim Derry predicted the Buffalo Bills.
Oh, yeah. I would, because that's a very specific prediction. Yes, I like that.
I'm trying to be Nostradamus here, Doug.
I like it. I like the fact that you got one.
Always a lot of fun.
And you'd be okay going all the way down to 28?
I would be okay going to 20. I think
If you got enough in addition to.
Exactly, because I think there's a couple other tackles. I think there's enough tackles that one of the guys is going to be there at 28. I think so. So we'll see how the draft starts. I find myself
asking you more questions than you're asking me. Is that wrong?
No. I mean,
your opinion is interesting.
As long as you don't ask me about math, we're good.
No, clearly not. I'm going to stay away from all mathematical-based questions. Yes, clearly.
9 and 8 sucks for this team. 9 and 8. Anyway,
9 and 8 is average.
All right, we'll debate this again soon.
Sure. And when I was a kid, 9 and 8 would have been the greatest thing that ever happened in my life. We're not kids anymore,
Doug. Look at the sides of our head. Look at my beard.
I know.
We're not kids anymore.
Wait. Oh, that's right. Okay.
I mean,
thanks. I appreciate that reminder.
You and I combined, we're getting close to a combined 70 years in the business. Just saying.
Yeah. Oh, right, yeah. I know. I interned for Buddy Diliberto in 1987.
Yeah, well.
Yeah.
I started in 1990, so
there you go.
That's before a lot of the guys that I work with were alive, including the other guy in the green room.
Yeah, me too. Most of the Channel 4 newsroom was not alive.
They weren't even a gleam in their parents' eyes in 1990.
Nope. Not in 1987 either. Nope.
Enough gleams. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, Jeff.
Sorry, I cut Doug off there. He said, always a pleasure. And I agree wholeheartedly. I'm not joking. I love having Doug on the show. It's always a lot of fun. All right, we're going to end this show today with a short extra point. Again, I try to go 45 minutes. It's just not in the cards right now. It is what it is. We have a lot of fun. And, we try to have fun, and it usually is that way. I hope you guys are having fun listening and watching. Today's extra point is about the Masters. The Masters going on this weekend, and everyone's trying to be nostalgic and pulling for Tiger Woods or pulling for Phil Mickelson or whatever it is. But Doug and I were just talking about 1987 and 1990 and thinking back in the day. Well, back in the day, I was never a big fan of Greg Norman in the Masters. I don't know why. I think it's because there were so many other golfers that I liked, and he was one of those guys that seemed to, for lack of a better way to put it, choke a lot, okay? He was probably the most talented golfer of his time, frankly, but he always found a way to lose, or seemed to find a way to lose in the end. But I found myself in the more recent past coming to grow a fondness for Greg Norman and appreciate him and what he did and what he's done for the game of golf. So that's why I took something to heart that I found that I read over the course of the past couple of days. Now, for those of you that don't know, Greg Norman is the head of the LIV Tour, and the LIV Tour is the opposing the PGA Tour and sucking players from the PGA and whatever. I'm not a fan of the LIV Tour whatsoever. So that part I don't like about Greg Norman. But what I heard is ridiculous, okay? Now, these Augusta National uppity ups, we know how hard it is. If anyone who's ever tried to get Masters tickets, it's absurd. I mean, you literally have to poke yourself in the arm and have like blue goo ooze out of your arms to be able to get a ticket to go to the Masters. That's where we are these days. I keep supporting it, though, by watching it on TV, but that's a whole nother story. But they forced Greg Norman. They are so bitter. They are so petty at the PGA that they not only would allow Greg Norman, just give him a pass. They ought to let him walk around wherever he wants to walk. He's Greg Norman, for Christ's sake. But they made him buy a ticket. He had to buy a ticket on like Craigslist or some crap. I mean, are you serious? Greg Norman, the shark? I mean, that's where we are these days with the PGA and the LIV. In golf, as great as it is, you can make an argument that the level of play in golf today is better than any other time in any of our lifetimes. But you're going to make Greg Norman buy a ticket? I mean, he's already had a lot of heartbreak in the Masters. You go back and you see the date on the screen. For those of you old like me will remember this, April 12th, 1987. I didn't run the clip because, frankly, it is what it is. Greg Norman was in position to win. He faded down the stretch, allowed Larry Mize to tie him. They go into a tiebreaker. Looks like the Shark's going to win it. He's just off the putting surface while Larry Mize is way off. So all Greg Norman's got to do is get it in. At the worst, they're going to go to the next playoff hole, right? Nope. Larry Mize makes a 140-foot chip to win it and give heartbreak to Greg Norman. I don't think he's ever gotten over that. And if he did get over it, the Augusta National Committee gave him a big swift kick in the you-know-where. It's ridiculous. They've got to fix this. The PGA and LIV, they've got to come together, and this is getting ridiculous. And that's, look, if you want golf to keep going the way it's going, you got to get over yourselves. That's where we are. All right, that is going to end the show. I'm now off my soapbox. Plenty more on the Saints coming up. Next week is pretty much going to be, in fact, the next 5 shows at least. We may have an extra show week of the draft. I am going to be doing a show with Zach Ewing on draft night Thursday. What is it? April 25th, I believe. Thursday, April 25th is the first round of the drafts. We're going to be on the entire time, like we did last year, with Bet.Nola. And we're going to do an entire show. All the Saints guys are going to be there. Jeff Duncan, Luke Johnson, Matt Paris, all of them. And we'll have special guests throughout the show. It's going to be a whole lot of fun. But here on Dattitude, before we get there, we'll be talking a whole lot of Saints going forward. We've got guests next week. We've got David Grubb talking about, we're going to be talking about the Saints, the Pelicans, obviously. We hope they don't have to play in a play-in game, but if they do, we'll be previewing that. We're going to be talking about Jackie Robinson Day on Monday, which is a huge, obviously, one of the most important days in baseball, in my opinion. And then you got Wednesday, Garland Gillen's coming on the show, and next Friday is Larry Holder. So we got a full week next week and a lot of Saints talk, and we hope you're with us. A reminder to subscribe to the Dattitude YouTube page. Remember, it's real easy. If you haven't done it yet, just go to the Dattitude YouTube page. Not to NOLA. Want you to subscribe to NOLA.com as well, and the Saints page as well. But we want you to go to the Dattitude YouTube page, hit subscribe. You'll always find when we go on the air live. I'm also doing shorts going forward. Little NFL draft previews by position. I've been spending a lot of time working on some other things, but that is coming up over the course of the next 13 days. We'll be doing that and a whole lot of other things. You'll get notifications every time we go live. And, we have a lot of fun doing it. All right. For Doug Mouton, I thank him. For Gabe Henderson back in the green room, I'm Jim Derry. We will see you on Monday with David Grubb. Everyone have a wonderful weekend. Oh, I'm supposed to say, stay classy, New Orleans. Take it easy, my friends.
If you're looking for the latest scoop and in-depth interviews on the Saints, the NFL, the Pelicans, LSU, along with the best bets of the week, then lucky you. Along with high-powered, in-the-know guests who cover our teams, Jim Derry brings plenty of Dattitude. And he'll always tell you the way it is, or at least the way he thinks it is.